Hello, my name's Catherine Hobbs. I'm a lecturer in the Department of Engineering, Design and Maths in FET. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience with delivering teaching through the flipped classroom style. The module I've been teaching on for the last 3 years is a second year maths option module, taught to about 30 to 40 students each year. And 3 years ago, I decided to experiment with delivering it through a flipped style. And since then, I've been very positive about the results. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I do it, a bit about what the students think about the results, and how I felt as an academic member of staff delivering in this slightly different style. Okay, so in order to deliver teaching through the flipped classroom style, it's very important to do your preparation in advance. There is quite a lot of preparation that needs to be done. And the first thing I did was to decide which textbook I was going to use for the course. I picked a book that I felt really comprehensively covered the material involved, had a good accessible style for students, and lots of exercises in the back. And then I very much based my course content on that particular textbook. So the other preparation I did after choosing my textbook carefully was to prepare a study guide for the students. Each week I prepare a set of learning outcomes for the students, which have been carefully thought through against the text in the book. And I give them a set of readings to do and some exercises. And here is my study guide. The students get that electronically through Blackboard. The other preparation I did was to make a series of short videos going through in detail some of the techniques and topics within the course, sort of 2 or 3 minutes in duration each. And these were mainly filmed by me sitting at a visualizer, and it's just a film of me working through a problem with a voiceover. And these again are available to the students through Blackboard. Each week I prepare quite a high-level plan for the 3-hour session that I teach on. I start off the session with a quiz, and we use the Turning Point software that's available throughout the campus. The students can access this either through a handheld clicker. We have several sets that we can hire out within FET, or some of the lecture rooms are already equipped with them. Or we can use a system called Responseware, which enables me to put a piece of software in place that each student's mobile phone or device can access the quiz directly. So the students do a short quiz, probably about 8 to 10 questions, which we then we get the answers anonymously, and I can see through the screen response whether the students have really understood the pre-reading I set them or they've got some particular issues. Having identified those issues, I'll know throughout my 3-hour session how to schedule the session so that I can focus on the things that I could see they were struggling with and what aspects I could pretty well assume that most of them had understood. So in addition to the quiz, we also spend the first few minutes looking at the learning outcomes expected from that day's session. So these will be the same learning outcomes the students have seen in the study guide and they've been preparing for through their reading in advance. So we go through those learning outcomes. At that point, I'm hoping that most of the students have some idea what those learning outcomes actually mean in reality through their reading, but I'll be usually quite observing that they're not quite clear about some aspects. And then what we do in our session is we work through, usually they'll work in small groups, maybe pairs, maybe larger groups, working on various problems and aspects of the course. I'll be walking around the room, checking how they're getting on, and then occasionally pull back to the front of the class where either I might do a demonstration and explanation of an example, or the students might come up and do their own example if I've seen a particularly good solution as I've been walking around. Amazingly, the 3-hour session goes in a blink of an eye. We're suddenly there, we finish the session, and I finish off by going again through the learning outcomes and making sure that we've all really understood exactly where we've learnt about those particular aspects and the examples that illustrate them. So having told you about how I delivered the sessions, the question is, how did it actually go? What did the students think about the process? Did it improve their learning? We use several methods of feedback for this module. One of them is the standard online module evaluation questionnaire that we've used every year. We also use post-it feedback about midway through the semester. We set aside about 20 minutes for the students to work in groups to answer the questions about what they found was effective about the teaching and what things could be improved. I collate all those post-it notes and then feedback directly to the students. Of course, the nature of the teaching means that I'm in very regular contact with the students throughout, so I'm going around and talking to them during the 3-hour session. And so I can get quite a good view of how they're getting on and what they're enjoying and which things they're finding difficult. and in general what they feel about this particular style of teaching. And this year, in addition, this particular module was part of a larger evaluation project to look at the flipped style delivery across several faculties. And as part of that, my module was evaluated by an educational researcher, Catherine, who's also presenting a poster at today's conference explaining what the evaluation results were. So here are some of the comments that students made to us through the evaluation process, the module questionnaires and the evaluation that Catherine did. As you can see, there's some very positive comments there. There were some other comments about the course. Certainly some of the students felt that the pace wasn't always consistent. There were a couple of weeks where I'd given them quite a heavy reading load to undertake. But overall, they found it a very positive style of learning. They liked the idea that they could read the material in advance and decide what it was that they didn't understand and come to the session ready prepared for that. In addition, I think another important part of student feedback is actually to monitor attendance. Student attendance was very good during this module. In the 3 years that I've run it, we've had significantly higher attendance for this module than for other modules in the same level, the same programme. Students seem to enjoy coming along. So the third thing I wanted to tell you about was how it felt as an academic member of staff delivering through the flipped classroom style. And I must say it had a really big impact on me. You have to realise that there's going to be quite a lot of preparation to do in advance, and that you can't get away from. There will be preparation to do. But on the day, when you actually give the session, I just find it so much more energising than my previous style of lecturing by writing things on the board, presenting PowerPoint slides. I come out of my 3-hour session feeling buzzing with the energy of the students that I've been working with for that 3-hour session. I get to speak with the students, I know their names, I find out much more about them and their interests and what kind of areas of the mathematical content that I'm talking about particularly grab their attention. And it's resulted in several final year projects for those students who've come to me afterwards. And I think one other really important thing is that, in my view, it's really improved the student learning of the material. The students have a deeper understanding of the concepts that we cover, partly because they've come across the material more than once. So they do the preparation before the session, then they come to the session, they really understand it, and then of course we reinforce it with assessment work and the exam. I should mention that one of the things that I've changed over the last 3 years is the style in which I assess the students. The coursework assignment hasn't changed much in style. It's very much about their ability to communicate the topic. But the examination I'd set for the first couple of years was quite traditional in its style. Then I began to think about the juxtaposition between the style of exam and the way that I was teaching the students. I don't want the students to memorise material. I don't want them to prepare solutions and give them to me. I want them to understand and be able to interpret mathematics. That's one of the learning outcomes of the course. So I've set a different style of examination where I present them with some of the topics, some of the information from the course, and ask them to explain it to me in the question. And from that, my view is that the students, when I look at their answers in the exam scripts, demonstrate a much higher level of understanding of the theoretical concepts than I'd previously seen. And I've taught this subject for around 20 years now. So now to summarise my experience with the flipped classroom style, I think there were 3 key points I wanted to get across to you. One is, of course, that there's upfront preparation to be done with the flipped classroom style. So both for me as the lecturer, preparing the materials, the video, the study guides, and making sure the structure for each session is correct. And also for the students who have to prepare and read in advance. I expect them to do between 2 and 3 hours of reading a week. Secondly, I felt the students are much more engaged and getting a deeper learning from this style of teaching. They seem to have enjoyed it more, very good levels of engagement with the students. And thirdly, from the staff experience point of view, I've really enjoyed teaching my module this way. It's been much more relaxing than I've ever found teaching before. It's enjoyable, you get to really speak and interact with the students, and also you get to tell them about the interesting things that really grab you as an academic and a lecturer. So I'd really encourage you to consider looking at the flipped classroom style. It's a lot of fun, I'm sure you will enjoy it, and I'm pretty sure the students will too.